repairs, it's important to use only Florida licensed contractors. Remember to check their references, get everything in writing, and don't pay up front. To verify your contractors are licensed, contact the Florida Department of Business and Professional Regulation online at myfloridalicense.com. That's myfloridalicense.com.
The opinions expressed on the following sponsored program are strictly those of the host, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of this station, its staff, management, or sponsors. It's Monday night at 9 p.m. and time for Sex Talk with the Siegel brothers. Dr. Ricky Siegel is a certified sex therapist, educator, and supervisor, and his brother Larry Siegel is a clinical sexologist and certified sexuality educator. The Siegel brothers are here to answer all your questions about sex and sexuality, but we're unsure who to ask, including questions you didn't even know you had. They will also welcome guests from around the globe to talk about a wide variety of topics and issues within the fascinating world of sexuality. Thank you for joining us, and welcome to Sex Talk.
Good evening. It's Monday night. It's time for Sex Talk with the Siegel brothers. My name is Ricky Siegel. I'm a certified sex therapist.
And I'm Larry Siegel, a clinical sexologist and certified sexuality educator.
And my big brother. Always and
love
still?
It. Mm-hmm.
As always, like it'll change.
Really, it's still.
Yeah.
Still your big brother.
It's been good to have you my whole life. That's my big brother.
And
good to have you here.
Be had.
As my partner.
I love
Sex
it.
Talk.
You know, there are a few things I enjoy more.
Yes, this is good. We are on the radio in South Florida. If you're listening, maybe driving home, we are on 95.3 FM and 1470 AM. It was so funny to say that because if you're listening, you know that. And if you're not listening, you wouldn't be hearing me.
Yeah.
We're also live streaming on Facebook, Sex Talk with the Siegel Brothers. If you're watching us on Facebook, good evening. Thank you for joining us. Please hit like and share and tell your friends to watch. Mm-hmm. And give us a call. The phone lines will be open tonight. We can be reached at 888-565-1470 or hit that little send email button on the Facebook page. Send us in a question. It's just going to be a Q&A night tonight, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We had enough ranting and raving last week about this incredible insanity of sexual politics. And, we'll just keep it more, more informational tonight?
Well, yeah, again, I was thinking, we've talked about this in the past, maybe, as a somewhat regular feature, maybe once a month, that we can just do kind of, questions that people have asked us and questions people submit, questions people ask us in classes and just, stopping us on the street, as it were.
So, yes, if you're listening or watching and listening, submit your questions as you so choose.
Right, and definitely call in if you want to join the conversation.
Once again, 888-565-1470.
Now, before we jump in, too, I also want to take a moment because as a professional, as an esteemed therapist, I think people that have a number of different kind of issues, particularly around sex and sexuality, would, if they want to work things out, would do well to come see you and give you a call. So how could they get a hold of you?
Thank you very much. Yes, I don't remember often enough to plug the business. I can be reached by my cell phone. I'm happy to share it out with the world. 561-809-1080. Or shoot an email. You can text to that number or shoot an email to ricky@modernsextherapy.com. Speaking of modern sex therapy, I have to plug Modern Sex Therapy Institutes and my wonderful business partner and our dear old friend Rachel Needle, brilliant sex therapist and psychologist in West Palm Beach. Larry is part of our esteemed faculty, and we're very proud to host really the best and biggest names in the field. That's while we rant and rave and complain about why it's such a tiny field, one advantage is that we have close proximity to some brilliant thinkers. So we're happy, we're lucky to have people teach for us, and of course we do a great deal of instructing and supervising of the next generation of sex therapists and medical professionals who want to become sexuality counselors. Of course, an ever important and happily growing part of medicine. Slowly but surely, we've been among the first to bang that drum.
Yeah, we really were.
For integrating sex therapy with the still kind of little baby field of sexual medicine.
Yes. Yes. Which is fortunately growing.
Yeah, indeed.
Yep.
All areas, not just pee-pee doctors, right? Not just urologists and gynecologists, but even cardiologists.
Endocrinologists,
Are
oncologists.
answering questions instead of just dismissing them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sex and cancer is a growing area.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately.
Absolutely. And we
cancer
can't do a whole
continues
lot
to
without
grow, but-
hormones.
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, as we've talked about for years, it's virtually every discipline.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, yeah, glad to see that's
Except
up and
it
coming.
would seem in the mental health arena, right?
Well, yeah.
The American
Yeah, an interesting
Psychology,
irony.
American Psychological Association still doesn't really recognize sex therapy as kind of an official specialty, and there are hundreds of them. There's
Right.
kinds of psychologists I've never heard of or met, but not sex therapy
Well, you know why?
because it's about sex.
Well, it's not only about sex, but it also means that, as hard as they worked on their FIDs, that, in spite of finally paying off their student loans for their, hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt,
Yeah.
getting their PhDs in psychology, they would now have to go back to school and get another credential. And I think,
well-
and I've spoken to enough people over the years, and especially in even organizations, to kind of sort of get a sense that there's a little bit of they're above it that comes
No,
with it.
but
What
like-
they know is more than enough to deal with sexual problems.
But I'm talking about things like organizational psychology, industrial psychology. What our
Well,
eldest
yeah.
brother does, all due
Well, it's
respect
human
and love.
factors.
Human factors, like those are all official
Sure.
designations.
Right.
But-
You're also
but
not
why not-
coincidentally naming the areas of psychology that is the big money. The
I'm
organizational
naming
and
areas that
industrial.
I don't know anything about.
Right.
Maybe that was the mistake. I
$100,000 to come into a corporate office
And tell 'em
spend
all
an
what's
hour
wrong.
that you're all,
Yeah.
what animals they are in their group dynamics. Give me $100,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, so no, that's obviously a bone of contention that we do have. I want to throw in one little plug as well before we jump in. On October 25th, for anybody that's in South Florida, over the last, I want to say 20 years, it seems like it's been, if not maybe a little bit longer, what started out as a local conference on child abuse prevention and bringing providers in to look at different aspects of child abuse, called Turn on the Light
Yes.
conference, is now the premier state conference on child abuse prevention.
Wow.
And pretty much from the beginning, we've been a part of that as well.
Well, I dropped off in recent
yeah,
years.
yeah.
I'm glad that you've stayed connected
Yeah,
with them.
I've stayed.
'cause it was,
It's
it was a
again,
fun
keep inviting me
conference.
back every year to
Very-
do
get
the normal expressions
really
of sexuality
big,
in
too.
children.
Yeah.
Again, it's kind of an important workshop. I'm glad it's being seen as such, because we do need to understand that children are sexual beings. There are typical developmental expressions of sexuality that we're going to see,
Yeah.
and if we don't really understand that, we really can't. Which is a big part of the session, seeing where we might be looking at red flags and possible indicators of abuse.
Yeah, and those just constant reminders that parents are primary sexuality educators of their kids,
Yep.
not sexuality educators in a perfect world.
Right.
Right? And people who work in early childhood development, people who work in preschools, and anybody who works with kids has to understand that children are sexual beings just like human beings are sexual
Absolutely.
beings.
And they're curious, and they
knowing
find
the
ways of getting
difference
information.
between what's, as you said, normal expressions and possible indicators of abuse. That's another bias, right? People who
Yes.
work in the abuse field are automatically primed to see anything sexual as, right?
Absolutely.
How often have we heard, if a little girl knows the word clitoris, how do you know that?
Right.
Who taught you
Right.
that? Who's
or,
touching
or
you?
anything that people
Like,
think is an
really?
adult level
That's-
understanding or
that's the
knowledge of
first
sex,
place
they
you
must have
go.
been abused.
Remember for those wonderful years that we did remember the Friday before Father's Day, daddy's little girl,
Yeah.
the father's role in the healthy sexual development of their daughters.
Right.
Very-
And
we
we're
were-
bringing that
we
back,
were big
by the
on
way.
long titles in
I'm
those
saying
days.
this on the air. We're bringing that back,
I
and the
would love
just
to.
and the
We
just
should.
like Dad, because this is the time for it.
Absolutely.
It really
I mean,
is,
it's clearly
especially
what's
in
going
light
on
of
with
especially in
the
light of
gas.
what Donald Trump Jr. said today. I don't know if you
Oh,
heard
no. What
the
gem.
ridiculousness.
What gem did I miss?
That with all of this going on, it's I don't remember the exact quote, but basically saying that it's now he's more concerned for his sons than he is for his daughters, because all of this Me Too movement, all of this stuff coming out with what a person Cavanaugh has been, in his life, all of this stuff is just really just picking on men and victimizing men.
Okay.
And, men can be taken down with an accusation. And
it fits. It's
Of course.
because of
Talk
course
about
the
apropos.
persecuted, the poor white Christians and the war on Christmas. That's just the men.
yeah,
Right.
exactly.
So it
exactly.
fits. Right.
Right.
It all fits the
That's
profile.
right. And again, the idea, the understanding
So
that
he's not
they
worried
have.
about. Oh, okay.
right?
So women are now too empowered, and
Well,
now
not
he
only
has to
that,
worry about his sons.
But it's not only about
because
that.
all guys are on the child block. Yeah, I heard Trump say some
We
nonsense
can't
like that.
say anything to
Any
women.
guy now is suspect.
Right.
Really?
Any
No. Either
comment.
you're a piece of crap or you're not. Right?
Right.
Either you do these behaviors because you buy into that toxic masculinity we were talking about last week, or you don't. Either you respect women or you're a frat boy that thinks you're supposed to get drunk and try and get someone's pants off.
Right. And here's a little a little quick and dirty, a little litmus test. If you are now worried
Right.
and now confused, because now with all of this stuff going on, you're afraid to talk to women. You don't know how to approach women anymore because you're afraid you will be labeled an abuser.
You
are.
probably are.
Yeah, you are.
It's that easy. Right?
It truly
Yeah.
is. It truly is. Because again, there's no real issue that these people are bringing up. Just like, again, you use the comparison. They believe, right? And how many times have they said this, that people have not been allowed to say Merry Christmas.
That's right. Yes. It was good. Yeah, Obama
That's right.
illegalized
You're not
it.
allowed. We made it
That's
illegal.
right.
We're going to now make it okay
Yes.
to say it
It
again.
was one of those executive orders.
Yeah.
Sure.
So, I mean, this is the mentality of the people we're dealing with. So,
man.
So, yeah, I think it's really this. We have to bring those programs back because they really, I think, more than ever, are very, very valuable.
Yeah, but the young men stuff too. It's not just raising daughters to be
No, it's
empowered. It's
raising men.
responsible, respectful men that don't see
Exactly.
women as a conquest.
What is basically the I would say the ethos or the creed of this very show? Right? Is that
Men prevent sexual violence.
That's right.
Period.
This is a men's
This is
issue.
not a women's issue.
No, I don't care how many defense classes and and negotiating skills
Yeah.
seminars women take.
Dude,
It's men who have to stop doing it.
And the creepy stuff that makes us kind of embarrassed for our fellow Y chromosome carriers. Do you remember when the reality pouch condom, the vaginal pouch,
sure do.
didn't last very long? They're
I was one of the
clunky
field
and-
testers.
You're right. Clunky, rustly, they're not very popular.
No.
But what were they out? 15 minutes before we started hearing stories about guys who would just push them aside and enter next to because they didn't want to be inside a condom.
Right.
What? Oh, that's like predatory. That's creepy.
Well, I mean, how many
level.
guys slip the
Like,
discreetly slip the condom off anyway?
She doesn't trust that he's going to use a condom, so she wants to feel more empowered. Or maybe like there's a herpes thing, and she wants to cover her vulva as well as have a condom to prevent pregnancy, and he's
Yeah.
going to push it aside and go in next to it. Ugh, that's predatory.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's deceitful, and it's all those things that we often complain about guys being,
Yeah.
right? So
we shouldn't be embarrassed. We should be proud, right?
Yes,
we shouldn't
absolutely.
be now timid and afraid of. Well, I guess there's a lot of guys afraid of skeletons coming out of closets now. Right? Remember whatever
Yeah.
happened to that Congressional Slush Fund?
Oh, that's still there.
Yeah, all
That's
that
still- as a matter
pot
of
of
fact-
money for accizations, and
from my
and
understanding, it
hush
has also
money
been
and-
increased. Right? So, I mean,
That's
what
how
was
they
it?
do something about the problem.
What was it? I don't know. I can't even give a number, but it's a
Yeah.
lot of money. It's tens of millions of dollars
Yeah.
that Congress has set aside to use simply to settle sexual harassment suits.
Wow.
And again, that says a lot too. There's a lot. We can talk for days and just on a lot of this contextual stuff. And in fact, one of my classes I was talking about today, that it really struck me, and I think it really says volumes, particularly toward women. But what words do we use to describe being taken advantage of and abused? Screwed. And others as well.
Sure.
But we use words for sex.
Sexual,
Right? I mean,
right.
if somebody knocked on my door and I open my door and there's people with a giant check for $12 million from Publishers Clearinghouse, I want to be able to say, I just got royally screwed.
Right.
I want to celebrate that.
Right.
But I think, again, it's a contextual thing. It sort of adds to the tone. It's below our individual radars. We're not aware. These are the things that make this stuff okay, that create that climate. That's how we use these words. We use words for sexual intercourse interchangeably with taking advantage of and abusing.
And also angry, violent. There's that connection too with
Oh,
the
yeah.
granddaddy, the F-bomb.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Ben used to say that about sucked and ass kicking. That something is good, it's ass kicking. Every time I got my ass kicked, it was never good.
No,
But
never.
when something's bad, it sucks.
Yeah, no.
Shouldn't go any further.
Now, granted, some people have sucked badly, but I mean, for the most part, no, that feels good. We need to reclaim this stuff. We need to turn this
part,
really
yeah,
around.
that really is part of.
But this is really one of those contextual foundations
It
that
sure
all
is.
of these attitudes
That's
and values
why
are sitting on.
any attempt. What's the foundation that somebody can try and build even a healthy, comprehensive sex ed program on? If this is the foundation, it's always right.
You're behind
always
the eight ball.
slipping and falling
Right.
because and then it ends up being just STDs. And don't do this or that'll happen. It's all
Well, that's most of it, sure.
No sex ed. How many? Even like one of the best that everybody holds up as the gold standard. Well, no, I'm sure they do. I was going to say the Unitarian Universalist curriculum.
yeah.
Our whole lives.
Done things with them before that curriculum. Do some great
They
stuff.
do talk about pleasure. And that's like such a taboo that sex
Right.
ed has to just, no, we're supposed to just scare the crap out of kids about what goes wrong.
Right.
Don't have sex or you'll get pregnant and your life will be ruined. Don't have sex or you'll get a disease and your junk will fall off.
Right.
But you talk about pleasure and how we're wired for pleasure, like it or not, and how human beings are sexual beings and we need to embrace that and think about sexual decisions in that context.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No,
Well,
even
again,
where sex ed happens, and most places it doesn't happen.
No.
It doesn't go there.
I mean, remember again years
Should
ago
start there.
when we were in these circles and the pregnancy prevention coalitions and all that kind of stuff.
I do
my
remember.
thing was always when people say, "Oh, do you do pregnancy prevention?" I said, "No, I don't." "Oh, do you do STI prevention?" "No, I don't." "Do you do HIV prevention?" "No, I don't." "I don't do
No.
dropout prevention. I don't do gang violence
Right.
prevention. I don't do any of that prevention. I do promotion. I do health
Right.
promotion. I do promotion of well-being. I do
Right.
promotion of good decision making."
And kids hopefully prevent all of those things.
Well, that's
Right?
kind of the irony.
Teens prevent teen pregnancy, not adults.
Right.
We were involved with that first ever. I don't think it's still around. Is
No.
it? The
No, I
Teen
don't think
Pregnancy
so.
Prevention Coalition. The meetings got crazy. Everybody just wanted to fight, and
Right.
kind of like a little mini Washington D.C.
Well, because again, just like we
Ironically
have in
enough.
Washington D.C., it's, the main polarization was people that like us that we wanted to prevent negative consequences
By
associated
promoting
with
sexual
sex.
health.
Right. They wanted to prevent sex.
Right. Remember? Yes, that woman was so embarrassed. Everyone going around talking about what they do. And said, "I'm in teen sex prevention." Everyone started to.
And it's, oh yeah, you did mean that.
I meant teen pregnancy prevention.
Yeah, Freud was
Yeah,
smiling down on
that's-
that one.
Yeah, sure enough. Well, that was their idea of teen pregnancy
Right.
prevention,
Right.
sex prevention.
And again,
what
this
is
is
sex? That's the thing. abstinence, an awfully big word for little kids, which is never explained other than just don't have sex, just say no, just like drugs. But they don't talk about what sex is. So they're left on their own to figure it out.
So could that possibly be why, he asks sarcastically, that when we look at the data that we've seen for years, it is abstinent kids, the ones who sign the pledges, join the clubs, wear, and for people who are in the know, this is not a joke. There is such a thing as abstinence underwear.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Those panties for girl with a little stop sign on it that they honestly think if, they do let things get hot and heavy, that is sort of last exit before toll, and they will get off. Right? Only not the way they think they will.
Wow.
It's insane. Why are they 7 times more likely to get a sexually transmitted infection?
Because when they have sex, whether it's a month after their abstinence program or 6 months or a year, they know nothing about preventing infections or pregnancy because they weren't taught anything other than you don't need to know that because just don't do it.
Right. And your point as well, not knowing, again, it's not so much not knowing, but given the ability to redefine,
right,
what sex is. And again, you've said this a number of times. We've laughed about this a lot, that these kids do not get STIs. They get fatties.
That's right. They get
right?
they
get
fooling
fatties.
around
They get
transmitted
FATIs.
diseases.
Right. Because, we're not having sex.
Yeah.
If we are not allowed to have sex, we're not supposed to have sex. And if we did, we have to use protection. So we're not going to use any of that. So let's just fool around. Let me just put it in a little bit. I won't do anything. We're just fooling around. We're not having sex.
Well, and I hate to single them out, but amidst yet another scandal in the Catholic Church with sex abuse, what is it now? Chapter, I guess you have to use Roman numerals, MXXXVII. That is, as far as my memory, going back to high school, Catholic school is where the quote unquote poop hole loophole came from.
Well, sure.
That anal was a
and
not
girls
sex.
would preserve
I'm still
their
a virgin.
virginity.
My
with
vagina
anal
is my
intercourse.
virginity.
Right.
I'm saving it for my wedding night, but we could still fool around. So again, it got real tragic when HIV came along.
Yeah.
In fact, the very first time I had to deliver a positive HIV test result to someone was a 17-year-old girl. You remember this story.
I do.
Certainly stuck with me if I lived to be 200. And you remember the reports that would come in from the health department, just a stack of barcodes, right? And if there was a positive in there, it was like, we hope somebody was coming in with that barcode sticker in the next couple of days. If they never come back, we can't find them.
That's right. The anonymous testing site.
And then it was like everybody in the clinic is like, who's going to have to deliver? Who's up? Get Ricky. He's and whatever was going through my head, but about me, right? That I'm delivering the news, not receiving the news.
Right.
Nothing prepared me for this girl's reaction, which was just, it must be a mistake. That's not mine. I'm a virgin. And of course, for a minute, I went for it. And said, well, do you have any tattoos? Any IV drug use? Asking all those other kind of questions until, went back around to, wait a minute, what's virgin mean?
Yeah,
That
exactly.
was it. Then when it dawned on her, because she she a couple questions later told me that she'd been having unprotected oral and anal sex since she was 12. Then as it dawned on her, the reality hit like a ton of bricks.
Right.
And remember those tiny little counseling rooms? We were like
do,
sitting
very
on the
well.
floor, rocking, and so she was wailing and snot bubbling. It was horrendous. But that's that denial,
Yeah.
right? Language, sexual language, when it gets politicized, right? Don't have sex, but we're not going to tell you exactly what it is.
Right, like all it does is fuel denial and reframing. And I don't care who you are, every generation of adolescents did the same thing. With whatever they were told they weren't supposed to do, they just, instead of, they don't change the behavior, they change the names. Right? They change the names. Call it something else and they're not doing it anymore.
Or the old myths. I just remember Billy
those
Connolly's
too.
old story about the young boys telling each other, discovering masturbation? I said, now remember, you get 100.
You get
of
100
these.
of those.
That's it for your whole life.
That's right.
And
And
then-
remember the pressure of that 99th one.
No, the
right? The very next
101st,
day.
101st. Oh, I heard he's real sick with Parkinson's disease.
Yeah,
Very
yeah,
sad.
I heard that too.
Billy Connolly was one of the most brilliant and funny men
Yeah.
ever.
Yeah, and his from was it the Brooklyn Academy of Music, one of the best stand-up shows
Yes,
ever.
indeed. Finally found it. It's on YouTube.
Oh, excellent,
Yes.
excellent. He'll be happy
Look
about
for it.
that.
Yes. Well,
Yeah.
yeah. Whoopi Goldberg introduced him to the United States.
Yep. Yep. So, so we didn't get to too many questions.
Are we out of time?
We're
yeah, it
we're
sure
getting
does
there.
get to that time again. Yep.
A couple of things. This maybe two, because I think you put something out there that's definitely worth mentioning a little bit more. Even just when you what's a virgin, right? Now, that's not necessarily a question that we have gotten from people a lot, but we know it's a question a lot of people have. They just don't ask. And it's a classic example of some of the things that we talk about, how people go into their relationships on any level, if it's a casual relationship or if it is one of the most significant relationships that they ever plan on having in their life. People go into it pretty much the same way, not with understandings and agreement,
Right.
but with expectations and assumptions. So this idea of, we're using the same word, so therefore we must be on the same page,
Right.
can be dangerous. Right? Again, that same kind of thing. I'm a virgin. Okay? If we don't stop for just a fraction of a second and ask, what do you mean by that?
Right.
We may be completely at odds with each other. Same thing with relationships too. What does it mean to cheat? Right? What does it mean to step out? What does it mean to violate your trust?
Absolutely. We'll have to make a note so we don't forget again, and so we know exactly where to pick it up next week. That would be a really good thing to talk about. Because I think it's a general rule we can say safely that most people in relationships learn what the rules of those relationships are when they break them.
When they break them. That's
And
right.
then, of course, it's always with conflict,
right.
and that's not what I meant, and I didn't know.
Exactly. And at that
instead
point,
of-
now also, and this is a big point too, not to just cut you off there, but
Yeah.
that's a real pivotal point right there too. Once it does become a conflict, there's an instant mistrust. So
Right.
if you have misunderstood what I said, and I
Right.
say, no, that's not what I meant, the response should not be, well, that's what I heard. And people get really possessive
and that's
about
I think
their
that relates.
interpretations.
Yeah, that relates big time to how often we talk about situations with couples where there's a bust.
Yes.
I don't care what anybody walks in or discovers or catches or finds about their partner. If they come from a partner, lover's perspective, they're learning about their partner's sexuality. They're not busting them to do something they're not supposed to do.
Right.
So, as usual, the music means we haven't shut up soon enough. Thank you for joining us on Sex Talk with the Spiegel Brothers. We'll be here next Monday and every Monday at 9 p.m. Thank you for
indeed.
joining us.
Thank you, and have a great week. And happy belated Sexual Health Month.
You've been listening to Sex Talk with the Spiegel Brothers. Join us every Monday night at 9 p.m. on WNN, 1470 AM and 95.3 FM. Or watch live streaming video at AMP2 TV Productions on Facebook, or look for the shows on YouTube. Thanks for tuning in, and we hope you'll join us again next week. The opinions expressed on the preceding sponsored program were strictly those of its hosts, guests, and